Thank you, Mr.
5 minutes.
Chairman. I'd like to yield 1 minute to Mr. Arthur to respond to some of the attacks that were directed his way, if that'd be appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Strong, and I do appreciate that. One, I disagree with almost everything that the honorable woman said. The Center for Immigration Studies was founded by Otis Graham, who was a professor at the University of California, San Diego. On our board of directors, we have the first Hispanic U.S. attorney from San Diego. We have the former executive director for the Congressional Black Caucus, who was also the former graduate dean at Morgan State University in the home state of Mr. Ivey and I. And we also have the president of the Urban League of Miami. With respect to families and family units and the separation policy, was poorly handled. But in an April 2019 report, a bipartisan panel of the Homeland Security Advisory Committee found that those children are being used as pawns and that they're all traumatized on the trip to the United States. With respect to unaccompanied alien children, I believe the Washington Post editorial board may have used the word loophole to refer to the TVPRA as well. I can't remember if they did, but they certainly alluded to it. But in June of 2014 in Guatemala, President Biden talked about how those kids are being placed in the hands of criminals to be smuggled to the United States who physically and sexually assault them. If you took all of the children who have been released into the United States under the Biden administration, put them all in one school district, it would be the 6th largest in the United States. If you had a school district in which there were a significant number of physical and sexual assaults going on every day, that would be the only thing, God, I pray, that this committee and every committee on Capitol Hill would be looking at every day.
Thank you, Mr. Arthur. Mr. Judd, I'd like to say thank you for the time that you've spent with us. I'm in my first 11 weeks as a United States Congressman. It's been very informative. The thing that we saw at the southern border, I've been there twice since I've been a United States Congressman. They're not just coming from Mexico, they're coming from Honduras, Guatemala, Cuba, El Salvador, Haiti, Iran, and they're coming from China too. Mr. Arthur, we often hear every migrant that comes to our border referred to as an asylee. However, does DHS admit that of all the people subject to expedited removal who claim fear between 2014 and 2019, only 15% of their asylum claims were ever actually granted?
Yeah, it's actually 14.7%. Actually, I think it was 17% of all the people, but that was 14.7% or 14% of 83%. It's a little confusing. But yeah, a significant number of individuals past credible fear are allowed to apply for asylum, and yet during that 12-year period, we saw that nearly, it was almost twice as likely that a migrant would be ordered removed in absentia when they failed to appear at their hearings than that they were actually granted asylum.
Thank you. You're an immigration judge and have studied and translated the data. Is it your opinion that the migrants pouring over the border, particularly the northern border, are all asylees?
You know, it's actually interesting, Mr. Strong, because in my written testimony, I talk about Canadian officials, Canadian NGO officials who are talking about our system was never built to handle this many asylees. At the end of 2022, there were 70,000 and change asylees in Canada, a period of time in which there were 1.566 million in the United States. I was an immigration judge. I've granted people asylum. It's absolutely important that we keep the asylum system. We be able to grant people asylum.
Thank you.
This is breaking the asylum system.
Thank you. It's been reported that President Biden and Prime Minister Trudeau have reached an agreement to apply the Canada-U.S. Safe Third Country Agreement to illegal aliens that have crossed in between the borders. Will this modification act as a deterrent, or is it more smoke and mirrors from the Biden administration?
It's a strong protective measure for the Canadian government because the Canadian government was inundated. 40,000 people came through the Wrexham Road unofficial port of entry in 2022 into Canada. So this really just benefits Canada. It doesn't benefit the United States. Canada has 3 oceans surrounding it, and their only borders with the United States. The only illegal migration that they get primarily, almost exclusively, is across that border into Canada.
Thank you. Ms. Dawson, in January of 2023, there are numerous reports of at least one Canadian province that voted to decriminalize the possession of hard drugs, cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, along with others. Ms. Dawson, what does your data show will occur in the next 10 years when many in Canada believe the solution is to legalize cocaine, heroin, fentanyl. What do you think this is going to do?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. That's not something that I have the data to answer. As I mentioned in my presentation, Canada has different rules with respect to many things as a sovereign state, use of drugs among them. But I can tell you that the U.S. and Canada do cooperate extensively on cross-border movement of criminals, eradication. There's a cross-border crime forum that's looking at these issues every single day, and I recommend that you look to the cross-border crime forum to make sure that this issue is high on their priority list.
Thank you, Ms. Dawson. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.